The following program is the work of broadcast students from the British Columbia Institute of Technology. BCIT Magazine features news stories from around the Lower Mainland which were produced over the past week. Responsibility for the content of the show rests completely with the students and their instructors.
Today on BCIT Magazine, Vancouver calls for more federal dollars to save city infrastructure.
TransLink cracks down on UPass fraud.
And Vancouver's oldest bookstore is closing its doors.
Hello and welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Franny Karlinski.
And I'm Jeff Clowers. The City of Vancouver is backing a new proposal from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. The plan is calling for a national 20-year commitment with predictable funding to develop and maintain infrastructure. Franny Karlinski reports.
Overcrowded transit, escalating repair costs, and worn-out roads are all contributing to Vancouver's infrastructure problem.
You can't plan the repairs to the roof of your house based on the odds of winning a 649 lottery.
The Federation of Canadian Municipalities, with the support of Mayor Gregor Robertson, says Canada needs a 20-year plan to fix its crumbling infrastructure.
We propose an increase in federal funding for municipal infrastructure from the current $3.25 billion to $5.75 billion.
The annual boost is the key suggestion, but funds would need to be matched by the province and municipalities themselves.
This is just to catch up on infrastructure that's falling apart across the country, to reduce traffic congestion. We have been chronically underserved with transit here in Broadway Corridor, which forces 80% of the people working in this corridor to commute in by car because the transit service is not adequate enough.
More funding would give Vancouver some stability, but this development expert issues a word of caution.
What we need, and definitely the Canadian Infrastructure Plan supports this, is rebuilding the existing infrastructure. But what we don't want is expansion of an infrastructure system that we already can't maintain.
Canada's new infrastructure plan would work towards easing traffic gridlock and improving public transit. The Federation wants to get the plan approved no later than the next federal budget. Franny Karlinski in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
For the first time ever, someone is facing fraud charges for selling their student bus pass, also known as a UPass. Transit police say this case represents one of many they are currently investigating. But, as Francesca Fionda found out, not everyone believes the sale should be illegal.
In most students' back pocket is a UPass. While many see it as a great way to save money, some people see it as a way to make money.
The way I see it, it's just going to happen unless you change the system.
Ty refused to give us his last name or let us show his face. As a driver, he sees the UPass as a product he was forced to pay for but doesn't use. He says reselling the pass is the only option.
Give students options to pay or not, because hey, we students are not rich and we still paid for the UPass.
UPasses are a mandatory purchase for students built into tuition fees. Anyone with a valid student card can come up to a machine like this, swipe their student card, and every month a new UPass will pop out. UPasses cost students $30 a month compared to the $151 for a 3-zone pass.
Ty isn't the only one trying to sell his pass. A search on Craigslist the week fraud charges were laid showed a long list of UPass sellers. Some people even selling more than one pass. Prices ranging from $40 to $70. TransLink estimates it's losing $15 to $20 million a year to lost, stolen, and illegally resold UPasses. The BCIT Student Association says people who resell jeopardize the UPass for everyone else.
These type of programs, to make them work, it's everybody needs to be in. What it is by the number of money collected, then it is able to subsidize or to be able to afford this type of program.
For now, students using transit can rely on the UPass to get around. But in January, BCIT students will get a chance to vote on whether to let the program stay or go. Francesca Fionda in Burnaby for BCIT Magazine.
Last week, BC's Environmental Appeal Board ruled Fort Nelson First Nations had the right to take legal action against gas companies harvesting billions of liters of water through fracking. Jeff Clowers spoke to First Nations members who had strong words for those who are trying to take away their most precious resource.
They're refusing to look at the big picture and the cumulative effects and impacts of what's going on in Northeast British Columbia, the breadbasket for this province.
Members of the Fort Nelson First Nations gathered in downtown Vancouver on Tuesday to push for a reform in the relationship between First Nations, government, and gas companies. Lands Director Lana Lowe says the trio have had strained talks in the past, brought on by a disagreement on the long-term impact fracking has on the land and people in northern BC.
We're asking the province, we're asking industry to work with us so we can figure out, okay, you guys need this much water, is that okay? And if so, what are the effects going to be? We need to cap it. Right now it's just a free-for-all. It's a gold rush for water, and nobody seems to be concerned about that except for us.
While it's unclear whether there's a significant environmental impact, the amount of water being withdrawn has increased by a staggering amount over the last few years. This time-lapse graphic shows the water withdrawals in Fort Nelson First Nations territory since November 2006. As you can see, there was a significant jump in withdrawals starting October 2010. The concern is that if the process harms the land, those who rely on it, like avid hunter Newt Lowe, will be left out in the cold.
What's really alarming to me is 3 years ago, I've noticed, like, used to be abundance of fish. In my opinion, I'm a pretty good fisherman. I went and I'd done my usual thing looking for fish, and I went 3 days, never caught a fish.
Without an agreement pending, legal action is the next step for Fort Nelson First Nations. They plan on fighting gas companies' ability to acquire water withdrawal licenses in court. Jeff Clowers in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Shocking news on the status of debt in British Columbia. BC has become the most reliant on consumer credit, according to reporting agency TransUnion, seeing the debt load increase by 400% over the past 2 years. Here at BCIT, the news fails to surprise.
I work as well as going to school just to support myself, and it's incredibly hard to get the grades that you want.
I think about how much debt I'm just going to be in myself, and I can't even imagine people who go through 7 years of school and have to take it out.
The government is pretty good at spending money, and people need lots of things, so it doesn't surprise me entirely.
The good news is that average credit card debt is actually falling by 1% year by year over the past 2 years. And now we go live to Matthew Hunt, who is no stranger to student debt himself. Matt, what else can you tell us about debt here at BCIT?
Well, I had a quick conversation with a cashier at the counter for enrollment this morning. She said that about 80% of students use their credit cards to pay tuition. Now, incidentally, that average for credit card debt is down at or up at about $3,500 right now.
With the holiday season coming soon, how will that affect debt for British Columbians?
Well, I'm sure we could all agree that using your credit card during that time of year specifically is acceptable, but it's not without its own responsibilities. Now, you got to remember, and a word of advice, make sure that you're saving money now as opposed to later.
Coming up next on BCIT Magazine, we get a war veteran's response to cenotaph vandalism in Toronto.
And Canadian cellular carriers fight back against phone theft.
This is me. And my mom and dad. And my big brother Alex. And Jack. This is the day I learned that sandals got their name from sand. That jellyfish aren't made of jelly. That stars don't just come from the sky. That the ocean is bigger than all of us. This is the day we all got to forget I was sick. This was my wish.
Hi, I'm Jordan Liang, and welcome to this early holiday edition of Community Calendar. Yaletown will be transformed into a winter wonderland at the end of this month. A market will be open to early shoppers. And remember to bring your ice skates to step out onto the Scotiabank ice rink and finish off with a cocktail tour. The event goes between November 23rd to 25th, and admission is free. Come tour one of the finest heritage homes in Burnaby Heights for some Christmas baking, prizes, refreshments, and much more. Head to the mansion on November 24th and 25th between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Admission is by donation. Guys and girls can gather at the end of the month to celebrate their Movember fundraising efforts. The Commodore Ballroom is hosting a gala party where they will give away prizes for Best Mustache, Man of the Year, and Miss Movember. Tickets are $20 and doors open at 9 p.m. I'm Jordan Liang, and that's your community calendar.
Vandalizing of a Toronto War Memorial on Remembrance Day caused a wave of anger and frustration throughout the Canadian military community. Reporter Matthew Hunt spent time with a young veteran who shared his opinion. Here's his report.
The Cenotaph, a monument that is featured prominently in every community across Canada. Vancouver's Cenotaph is placed in a park where people can relax in the peaceful aura the memorial provides. Toronto's War Memorial was desecrated on Remembrance Day with these words, and a young local veteran voiced his reaction, one shared by just about every Canadian.
It's disgusting, right? Any sort of graffiti on any sort of cenotaph is just absolutely appalling. Whether or not the specific words angered me more so than it just being graffiti, yes, I suppose being an Afghanistan veteran, yes, it did offend me more so. You know, any cenotaph is specific for military members, not just from those in Toronto or those in Vancouver, right? So of course it matters no matter where it is.
It's too early to tell that the graffiti in Toronto has anything to do with terrorism at all. The person who drew on the memorial has yet to be found, and it could have just as easily been a prank. But suspicious packages and IEDs are turning up all over the Lower Mainland, and the security that people have enjoyed is starting to slip away at an incredible rate. But until an arrest is made, one can only hope that one has nothing to do with the other. For BCIT Magazine, in Vancouver, I'm Matthew Hunt.
As smartphones have become more popular and increasingly expensive, thieves have begun to take notice. After a dramatic rise in robberies over the last few years, Canadian cell carriers and police decided something needed to be done. Jeff Clowers has the story.
Canada's wireless carriers are now banding together to target smartphone theft by setting up a database that will blacklist stolen phones from being sold and reactivated, essentially making them glorified paperweights.
What this will do is make any stolen handset essentially worthless. If a thief can't activate it at any carrier that they can find, whether it's here in Canada or down in the States, even offshore, they're far less likely to steal it in the first place.
Every cell phone is marked by an internal EMEI serial code that makes it unique and easier to track.
The EMEI database that's emerging is going to be a universal standard, where all Canadian carriers, all American carriers are using the same database, which means that someone who steals a phone wouldn't be able to activate it anywhere in Canada, or for that matter in the US or overseas.
In an interview over the phone, Vancouver Police Sergeant Randy Fincham told us the increase in theft seems to coincide with the rise of expensive smartphones, some of them costing upwards of $500 to $600.
Well, what we've seen is as the new cell phone technology comes out and the cell phones increase in capacity and function, also the value increases. So what we attribute it to is looking at an iPhone or an Android or another type of portable device, like someone holding a $500 bill in their hands, and to a would-be thief, that might be tempting.
To protect yourself from cell theft, experts suggest following two simple tips. Number one, keep a strong password. It makes it more difficult for thieves to reactivate and helps protect personal data. And number two, treat your phone like your wallet. Always keep an eye on it. An unattended phone is a prime target to be stolen. Sergeant Fincham added that while most of the time it's simply lost and not stolen, if your phone is stolen, that you should report it to your phone carrier and local police as soon as possible. He also joked that even if it has disappeared, the phone bill and payments stick around. Jeff Clowers in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Another pipeline is proposed for the north-central BC corridor between Dawson Creek and Kitimat. Officials say the pipeline could eventually be expanded to move as much as 5 billion cubic feet of natural gas every day.
Vancouver's oldest used bookstore that has been open since 1946 is saying goodbye to its customers at the end of the year and shutting its doors for good. Carly Babcock has more.
After 65 years of business, Vancouver's oldest used bookstore is shutting its doors. Located on Granville and Broadway, ABC Book and Comic Emporium can no longer afford its $9,000 a month lease. Owner Louis Maybe, or Skip as most call him, says a number of factors played into the store's closing.
The internet provides a lot of entertainment for a lot of people, which is what we're in, like the entertainment business, reading. But in our particular case, we got knocked around a lot by TransLink and the new Canada line.
Sales were fine for owner Skip until TransLink decided to cancel the 98B line, which used to stop right in front of the store. Ever since the bus became non-existent, sales have significantly decreased.
That was 3 years ago, and that was sort of the final blow, so to speak.
Some customers still value a good old-fashioned book.
I'm a big fan of hard copy, and I'm a big fan of making sure that people don't sort of lose the history of certain industries, because that is important.
Customer Nina Angeline says she's upset the store is closing after so long.
I'm sad. It's unfortunate, though, the fact that books are, disappearing, and we're all a part of that, We all have our gadget.
When the store closes at the end of December, Skip has one message to his customers.
Well, obviously I have to thank them because I got to do what I wanted to do for many, many years, and we've still got time. They can come in and own a piece of the Emporium.
Carly Babcock in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
Coming up next on BCIT Magazine, surgeons consider lowering minimum body mass index for obesity surgeries. And a cancer survivor begins his hitchhike across Canada in his underwear.
They say if you want a wish to come true, never tell anyone. But there is one wish that can make the difference between life and death. And this wish can only come true if you tell someone. Please, let your family know you want to be an organ donor.
Standby graphics, ready camera one.
If you want to experience the fast-paced world of news,
today on BCIT Magazine, striking,
make magic on a movie set,
frame,
and action, or bring your creative ideas to life, BCIT's hands-on training will get you started. BCIT Television and Video Production. Your possibilities start here.
While November has recently become a period of awareness for prostate cancer through the Movember initiative, it's also Osteoporosis Month here in Canada. Today, we're speaking with Desiree Nielsen, Nutrition's Operations Manager for Choices Market, about osteoporosis and the effect your diet can have on your spinal health. So Desiree, what are some signs that you might have osteoporosis?
Well, osteoporosis is generally more common as we get older, so anyone over the age of 50, particularly those who are lighter and finer boned are more at risk for osteoporosis.
And I've read that nutrition is a major factor in getting osteoporosis. Can you speak to that?
Well, nutrition does have a role to play because simply put, we are what we eat. So we want to ensure that we have adequate amounts of nutrients like calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, and even vitamin K in our diets.
You mentioned the vitamins that can help us be more healthy. Is it possible to overdo that and take too many vitamins?
It is very possible. More of a good thing is not better, especially with calcium. In the past, we have been too quick to encourage people to take large doses of calcium. And we've learned in the research recently that more calcium, more than about 500 milligrams a day, might not be a good idea.
In this upcoming holiday season, food is obviously a big part of that. Do you have any tips for people on how to best fight osteoporosis and keep their nutritional health?
So this holiday season, the really important thing to remember is that the holidays are really just a few days, not a whole 6-week period, because we can gain quite a lot of weight if we're constantly dipping our hands into the cookie jar. So in terms of maintaining your bone health, but also helping stave off hunger and ensuring willpower in the holiday season, really pay attention to protein.
it'll be tough to fight off all those Christmas cookies. Where can we go to get more information about this?
Osteoporosis Canada has a great website, and it's www.osteoporosis.ca.
Perfect. Thank you for coming in, Desiree.
Thank you.
Canadian surgeons are considering lowering the body mass index required to qualify for obesity surgery. As the treatment becomes more popular, there are still considerable risks to consider. My co-anchor Franny Karlinski explores the BMI debate in this report.
Good morning, Dr. Demianchuk's office.
Private clinics see hundreds of obesity surgery cases each year.
As the BMI gets lower, the number of people who will be encompassed is larger and larger. The surgery is quite risky, though. It has risks. And on the larger BMI people, there is a greater risk, but they also have greater benefits. Currently within Medicare, there's fixed resources, and there's only so much OR time, so many nurses. We have to decide which patients are most urgent and who has to be done first.
Despite the risks, Tony Levy chose an elective lap band procedure 2 years ago. She's lost 130 pounds, which she says is worth the $15,000 she spent at a private clinic.
I was getting very fed up with friends who would say, just eat until you're full, and didn't seem to understand that if I ate until I was full, I would no longer fit through doors. At a certain point, I think you stop worrying about going to therapists or thinking, why can I not control my eating? And you simply reach the point where you say, I can't, okay? The band will do it for me. And it does do it for me.
Some people end up waiting years for services covered by most insurance plans.
The requirements are not any less stringent when done at a private facility versus being done in a hospital. Just access.
I mean, I was at the point where this was a very serious threat to my health. And the doctors certainly agreed with that. I do not like the idea of line jumping. I would rather see that the line was determined by need.
While surgery is not a cure for obesity, Levy says her weight is finally under control. Franny Karlinski in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine. For a month now, one cancer patient from Surrey has been told the city's bylaw department doesn't have enough resources to enforce no smoking signs. But as Sana Rangwala found out, the city may have a new solution for smokers who break the rules outside the Fraser Valley Cancer Centre in North Surrey.
As David Teal wraps his little boy in a blanket today, he feels a sense of relief. But when he first found out he was having a baby, it was the same day he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. He says it was hard enough dealing with the cancer, but every time he went for treatment, he felt nauseous.
But what happens is when you come out of the clinic, or in and out of the clinic, there's probably 12 to 15 no smoking signs, and usually more smokers than not. Definitely when you come out after a dose of radiation, you don't need to walk into a cloud of smoke.
In an email statement from the Provincial Health Services Authority, it defends its smoking policy. Our smoke-free policy goes beyond the requirements of the Provincial Tobacco Control Act and municipal smoke-free places bylaws, and prohibits smoking on the entire cancer centre grounds. The PHSA says they use signs to prevent people from smoking in prohibited areas.
I don't mean they're not well enforced. There's lots of signs, but people aren't obeying them. That's the thing.
I don't like having to walk through the smoke when I come out because I don't smoke.
As you can see, despite many signs like these, smokers outside the cancer agency continue to puff on. But Surrey's bylaw department says that's about to change.
The real issue is there aren't enough bylaw officers in the city to constantly monitor some of the areas that are problematic. So we took a more global perspective, and we're dealing with an education program, and hopefully that will help.
The education program, which will be run by Fraser Health, BC Cancer Agency, and the City of Surrey, is still in the initial stages. If the program goes through, Hornan says there will be a large focus on signage specific to patients, staff, and visitors. Sana Rangwala in Surrey for BCIT Magazine.
This year's Movember campaign may see some brief competition. A man is hitchhiking across Canada to raise money for cancer research in nothing but his underwear. Sana Rangwala reports.
Who needs Stanfield's underwear? I got mediums, I got larges, I got...
Testicular cancer survivor Mark McIntyre took to the streets to promote his campaign today. The campaign is to raise money for the Canadian Cancer Society.
Need some underwear, right? Perfect. There you go.
He will get $20,000 from underwear brand Stanfield if he accomplishes his goal of hitchhiking from Vancouver to Nova Scotia in just his underwear. So far, he says it's going pretty well.
You know what, I have to say it's been all really, really positive. I mean, certainly you get looks, but as soon as people realize what you're doing and why you're doing it, they get really behind it.
Well, I didn't know really. When we saw him on underwear, we said, oh, what people do for being on camera. But he is doing a campaign for cancer. This is awesome.
That's great.
Yeah?
Yes, because a lot of people, they need some help. And a lot of people sick, you know, and then I agree with this campaign.
The Ontario native has a website set up where he's allowing people to control his campaign. Visitors can choose to donate or even give McIntyre a ride, like Martin Anderton, who will drive him from Vancouver to Whistler. Anderton says when he found out about McIntyre's cause, he had to be a part of it. Now he's just looking forward to the car ride.
I have a few tricks up my sleeve, some colorful boxers maybe to join him, but you know what, just pick his brain on all the things that he's doing for a great cause.
Though hitchhiking is illegal in Canada, Mark says if cops find out about his campaign, he's hoping they can see the good cause and just let it go. Sana Rangwala in Vancouver for BCIT Magazine.
A judge has dismissed a charge against a paparazzi accused of recklessly pursuing Justin Bieber. Prosecutors allege he chased Bieber at more than 80 miles per hour and forced other motorists to avoid collisions while Raph tried to get shots of the teen heartthrob.
Recently, the Covenant House Sleep Out to support homeless youth took place in Vancouver. Some notable participants include Whitecaps president Bob Lenarduzzi and former Bachelorette of Canada, Jillian Harris.
If you have any questions or comments regarding this program, please visit us online at bcit-broadcast.com or bcitbroadcastnews.ca. I'm Jeff Clowers.
And I'm Franny Karlinski. And that's today's BCIT Magazine. Thanks for watching. We leave you now with a view of the Port Mann Bridge, which will have 4 lanes open westbound and eastbound December 1st.